Time is really of the essence in Ukraine right now. We seem to be at a critical turning point.
Absolutely.
A moment where the grim realities on the ground are undeniably shaping any potential peace talks.
They really are. It's driving the conversation now.
So in this deep dive, we'll pull back the curtain on these intense military pressures. We'll look at the high stakes for global leadership and, the urgent choices facing Ukraine and its Western allies.
Yeah.
You're going to hear some, frankly, surprising details. Troop numbers, equipment shortages, the real human cost. It's become a brutal struggle for survival.
It truly has.
And the big question we'll explore is this. Can Ukraine somehow secure an acceptable, maybe difficult, peace now? Or is continued fighting on this current path going to lead to a far harsher Russian dictate down the line?
That's the core dilemma. And, it's quite striking how directly the battlefield realities are now dictating that diplomatic conversation.
Oh.
Well, as the United States, for instance, signals maybe a shift in its approach, moving from as long as it takes to actively seeking a negotiated peace. Well, the side with the momentum, the advantage on the ground, they gain significant leverage. They can start dictating terms.
Right, leverage is key.
Exactly. And this conflict, it's transformed. It's become this relentless attritional war. Meaning it's not really about those swift territorial gains anymore, not rapid maneuvers. It's a brutal, grinding focus on carefully managing your resources, preserving your own forces, and, systematically destroying the enemy's capacity to keep fighting.
So like a war of exhaustion.
Precisely. In this kind of fight, the ability to replace losses, both people and equipment, and keep your economy running under wartime conditions, that becomes the absolute key to winning.
And on that front, Russia seems to be showing a clear and growing advantage.
Yes, that's what the indicators suggest.
Just looking at August 2025, we saw Russian forces push forward, 10 kilometers?
Yeah.
Toward that crucial Ukrainian supply route, the Dobropilya-Kramatorsk highway in Donetsk.
A really significant move.
They grabbed over 144 square kilometers in just 1 week. That's much faster than before, right?
Yeah, a definite acceleration compared to the previous weeks. And these aren't just minor tactical shifts. They're highly strategic, designed to directly threaten, maybe even cut off, vital Ukrainian supply lines.
Which obviously strengthens Russia's hand for any talks.
Undeniably. It forces Ukraine into an increasingly difficult defensive position. You can see how it builds pressure.
And what's striking, too, is Russia's military power, its resilience, it seems to be expanding.
It is. They're successfully replacing their losses and actually growing their army. They're recruiting, on average, about 30,000 volunteers every month.
30,000 a month.
That's the figure being reported. So even when you factor in their own casualties, their overall military strength is apparently expanding by around 24,000 soldiers each month.
Wow. How are they managing that?
It's partly a testament to their military-industrial base. They've been building that up for the last decade, basically pivoting their whole economy to a wartime footing. Yep. And they're getting significant and growing support from allies, too. North Korea, for example. Sources say they've already deployed maybe 10 to 12,000 soldiers to Kursk.
Soldiers, not just equipment.
Soldiers. And more are expected. Plus, they're providing artillery shells. And Iran continues to supply crucial drone technology.
So this sustained capacity lets Russia not just replenish losses, but actually equip new formations.
Exactly. Maintaining a trained and equipped force estimated around 1.5 million personnel.
1.5 million? That's a staggering number. It just dwarfs Ukraine's available forces.
It's a huge asymmetry.
And it's not just about the numbers, is it? Their tactics have evolved quite dramatically, too. Russia's using what some are calling an offensive triangle. Can you break that down for us? What does that mean on the ground?
Yeah, the offensive triangle is a pretty potent combined arms approach. It brings together ground forces with two critical air assets, FPV drones and Lancet drones, alongside these UMPK glide bombs.
Okay, FPV, Lancet, glide bombs. What's the difference?
So FPV drones, first-person view, they're typically small, very agile, often kamikaze drones. The operator sees through the drone's camera, allowing for incredibly precise targeting. Think individual vehicles, maybe troop positions.
Okay, like a guided missile, but cheaper and more agile.
Sort of, yeah. Then Lancet drones are a bit more sophisticated. They're loitering munitions. They can cruise over an area, find a high-value target, and then dive onto it.
And the glide bombs. Those sound particularly dangerous.
They are. The UMPK glide bombs are basically standard aerial bombs, but fitted with wings and GPS guidance kits. This allows them to be launched from aircraft far away, well out of reach of Ukraine's current air defenses.
And they're using a lot of these.
An astonishing number. Russia reportedly ordered 70,000 glide bombs just for 2025.
70,000. So if these glide bombs and the drone tactics are proving so effective, what does that actually mean for Ukraine's defense? I mean, can they counter this?
Well, that's the critical problem. These glide bombs are standoff weapons, launched from kilometers away. And the consensus is Ukraine currently has, well, no effective countermeasures. None that are working consistently or at scale, it seems. This creates a really devastating dilemma for the Ukrainian defenders. Do they dig in deep for protection against constant drone and artillery strikes, which makes them sitting ducks for these massive glide bombs? Or do they stay mobile to avoid the bombs, but then risk constant exposure to those relentless FPV and Lancet drone attacks? It's a terrible choice.
Catch-22.
Exactly. And this technological and tactical edge, combined with their growing combat power, it means Russia is pretty unlikely to accept any ceasefire until final peace terms are fully agreed upon.
So they'll just keep pushing.
It looks like it. They seem to be openly prolonging negotiations, using their battlefield gains to strengthen their position day by day, and their demands right now are extensive.
What are they asking for?
They insist on keeping Crimea, plus control over 4 of Ukraine's oblasts, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. They also want a ban on Ukraine ever joining NATO or the EU. And guaranteed rights for Russian speakers. Beyond that, they're pushing to capture Ukraine's fortress belt of cities in Donetsk. These are heavily fortified urban areas which would open a clear path towards Kharkiv, a major strategic city.
So Russia clearly has strategic momentum, which inevitably turns the focus onto Ukraine's situation. And there the picture sadly looks increasingly grim, especially you mentioned manpower.
Yeah, putting this in context, Ukraine is facing really severe and accelerating manpower shortages. Some estimates from various sources suggest truly staggering numbers. Approximately 769,000 Ukrainian soldiers dead.
700,000.
And another 769,000 wounded so severely they won't return to the front. That totals roughly 1.5 million permanent losses from their fighting potential.
1.5 million.
What this rapid loss rate means practically is that Ukraine is, well, quite literally running out of trained, motivated fighting formations. They're struggling massively to replace these experienced losses with equally capable troops.
Those aren't just numbers. I mean, that paints such a stark picture of the human cost and maybe the breaking point for soldiers. It really highlights how unsustainable things might be, and it brings up that difficult issue of desertion.
That's right. Desertion is reportedly a significant and growing problem. Sources indicate 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers deserted just last year.
100,000.
Yeah. And to give you one stark example, there are reports of a newly formed brigade losing over 1,700 of its 6,000 men to desertion before they even got to the front line.
Before combat.
Before combat. Imagine the impact that has on morale, unit cohesion, effectiveness. And for the veteran troops who are still fighting, morale is said to be critically low. They're facing extreme tiredness, relentless combat, massive burnout, a profound feeling of being disproportionately sacrificed, and this pervasive sense of powerlessness, especially when facing those Russian glide bombs and the constant drone threat.
And it's not just the people, is it? Ukraine is also struggling with critical equipment and ammunition shortages. That must be fundamentally hitting their ability to just hold the line.
Oh, absolutely. A key thing to grasp is that Ukraine started this war with far fewer military resources than Russia, and now they're being vastly outproduced. Massively. Russia is apparently outproducing the entire West in artillery ammunition alone by something like a 3-to-1 ratio.
3-to-1.
And while Western military support has been substantial, it seems it has largely, quote, emptied out Western equipment storage. There are reports suggesting several Western governments have even stripped their own armies of critical gear to send it to Ukraine.
So the cupboards are bare.
Getting there. Some reports claim the West is now out of all missiles except German Taurus. That might be an exaggeration, but it highlights the depth of the challenge. And the artillery shortages on the front line are acute. One Ukrainian brigade, holding an 18-kilometer front, reported having only 4 working howitzers.
4 howitzers for 18 kilometers? That's almost nothing.
It's less than 1 per kilometer, a near impossible situation for effective defense. And remember the drones. While Ukraine initially had an edge there, Russia seems to have matched or even exceeded their production, and now they reportedly have a clear edge with these fiber cable drones.
Fiber cable drones, what's the advantage there?
These drones are connected to the operator by a physical fiber optic cable. That makes them essentially immune to the electronic warfare and jamming tactics that often disable standard radio-controlled drones.
So they're much more reliable.
Unprecedented reliability in a jamming environment. It's a crucial advantage in the ongoing drone war.
These mounting challenges, manpower, equipment, they're also being compounded by some criticism, maybe, of strategic leadership within Ukraine. We're hearing talk that senior political leaders might have prioritized, say, public relations objectives at a significant cost to military operations.
That naturally leads you to ask, well, what were the consequences of those decisions on the ground? In terms of lives, resources, the Battle of Bakhmut is often cited as a prime, tragic example.
Bakhmut, right. The meat grinder.
Sources suggest maybe 48,000 to 96,000 Ukrainian soldiers died there, and multiple analysts stated there was, quote, no military justification for holding the city for so long at such cost. It was seen more as a political symbol.
A symbol paid for dearly.
Very dearly. Another incredibly costly operation mentioned was at Krinki, across the Dnipro River. Reports claim it effectively wiped out the Ukrainian Marine Corps, again, allegedly driven more by optics, by the appearance of offensive action rather than sound military strategy.
So when you put all this together, the manpower losses, the equipment shortages, these strategic questions, what's the outlook?
Well, it paints a very concerning picture. The sources we're looking at warn that without some kind of dramatic shift, a collapse of the front is increasingly likely for Ukraine, maybe within the next 6 to 12 months.
A collapse. That's a stark warning.
It is a very stark warning.
Which brings us squarely to the diplomatic implications, the global stakes. There's that big meeting scheduled, August 15th in Alaska, U.S. President Trump and Russian President Putin.
A hugely anticipated meeting.
And it seems pretty clear that Russia's recent battlefield gains are explicitly designed to strengthen Putin's hand, give him more leverage going into those talks.
Absolutely. The timing isn't accidental, and it's particularly striking when you hear President Trump's stated goal to end this war. He's openly discussed the possibility of land swaps as part of a deal.
Ceding territory for peace.
That seems to be on the table, at least from his perspective. A potential willingness to accept some territorial changes to stop the fighting.
But how does Ukraine view that? President Zelensky.
Well, Zelensky, while he has confirmed Russia's advances, he's publicly downplayed their significance. More importantly, he's been very firm, reiterating that Kyiv will reject any demands to withdraw from Donetsk or cede territory.
Why?
He calls such moves unconstitutional. And he argues forcefully that they would only incentivize future Russian aggression, give them a reward for invasion. So you have this profound conflict of vision about the path forward.
And this conflict, it really extends far beyond Ukraine's borders, doesn't it? It impacts the whole international order.
It absolutely does. Western powers have staked a huge amount of their reputation and, frankly, the fate of the so-called rules-based world order on this conflict's outcome.
So if Ukraine suffers a military defeat,
especially after receiving such massive Western support,
wow,
well, it could profoundly undermine that order. It could significantly diminish the West's role in global leadership, a position it's held for, centuries.
Could it go further, affect economics?
Some analysts think so. Broadening the perspective, such an outcome might even jeopardize the U.S. dollar's central role in global trade.
Really? How?
Its recent weaponization, through heavy sanctions, has already prompted many nations, not just adversaries, to actively look for alternatives, for ways to bypass the dollar system. A major geopolitical defeat for the West could accelerate that trend significantly.
Which creates this incredibly difficult situation for Ukraine, this bitter peace dilemma you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Can it secure an acceptable, if bitter, peace now, maybe sacrificing some territory, some sovereignty, to prevent even greater losses?
Or the alternative?
Or does it continue fighting, risking a full military collapse and a far worse Russian dictate later?
Yeah.
The implications of that second scenario are, well, they're dire.
What could that look like?
If Ukraine's defenses were to collapse, Russia could surge forward, pushing much deeper into the country, and their demands would almost certainly become even more punishing.
Like what?
Potentially including all of Novorossiya. That's a historical term Russia uses for a large swath of southern and eastern Ukraine they consider historically Russian. It includes major cities like Kharkiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv.
Taking all that would leave Ukraine.
It would effectively reduce Ukraine to a landlocked rump state. devastating economic consequences, devastating geopolitical consequences.
So why? Why is Russia so fixated on grabbing all this land? It can't just be about resources, though Ukraine is rich in those. What's the deeper motivation driving this?
Yeah, you might wonder what's really behind this aggressive push for territory. Ukraine certainly has that incredibly fertile farmland, the breadbasket of the Soviet Union historically, and significant untapped shale oil and natural gas, huge economic prizes.
What's more than that?
It seems to be rooted in much deeper historical and strategic factors. First, there's the classic Russian military concept of strategic depth, creating buffer zones against perceived threats, especially NATO.
Historical fear.
A centuries-old strategy. Think Napoleon, think World War II. Fast territory as a defensive advantage. Second, there's definitely a powerful element of, well, imperial ambition.
Putin's vision.
When Putin talks about reuniting Russia, it's not just rhetoric. He's evoking historical figures like Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, framing his actions as part of this long imperial project to expand Russian influence and territory. It's a narrative.
A narrative for domestic consumption.
Crucially, it helps garner domestic support, casting the war not as an invasion, but as some kind of defensive liberation. And finally, this conflict serves a powerful domestic control purpose, too.
How so?
It lets the Kremlin rally the country through nationalism, suppress internal dissent, and provides a convenient justification to pour massive funds into military production, which of course benefits powerful oligarchs close to the regime.
And amidst all this strategic maneuvering, this intense fighting, the military desperation, we can't forget the human toll. The humanitarian crisis must be deepening rapidly.
It is, and it's not just some side effect. It's completely intertwined with the military situation. It's compounding quickly. As of June 2025, humanitarian groups had managed to reach about 3.6 million people with aid.
That sounds like a lot, but...
But the funding situation is reportedly dire. Only about 31% of the needed $2.6 billion had actually been received, massive shortfalls.
And winter's coming again.
Exactly. A new winter response plan is urgently seeking almost $280 million just to help 1.7 million highly vulnerable people survive the cold. We're talking displaced families, destroyed homes, collapsing basic services, especially near the front lines.
The suffering must be immense.
The inability to consistently deliver aid because of the fighting and just the sheer scale of human suffering, it really underscores the devastating impact this war is having on ordinary people every single day.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? It's incredibly clear that the path to peace in Ukraine, whatever that looks like, is being carved out by these grim realities on the ground.
The battlefield is dictating terms.
Right. Influenced by this complex interplay of shifting military strength, tough strategic choices, and these deep geopolitical ambitions, the balance of power is undeniably shifting. And with it, the leverage at any negotiating table.
The whole landscape is changing.
This deep dive, I hope, highlights the really stark choices facing Ukraine and also the profound implications for global stability, for Western leadership. The real question, maybe, is this. In this new era of attritional warfare, of shifting power balances, what's the true cost of delaying potentially very difficult decisions? And how will these dynamics on the battlefield reshape the international order for decades to come?